When I finally let in the possibility that I could be gay, everything started to fall into place. I don't care who's gay. I'll support your rights. I'll fight for your right for whatever. The only person who can't be gay is me.
Wow, isn't that interesting? You were an ally for everybody else, but you were not an ally for yourself.
I'm going to be happy. And if that makes you uncomfortable, then those are feelings that you're required to deal with, not me.
Welcome to the Old Chicks No Shit podcast for midlife women who are ready to rewrite the rules and create their kick-ass next chapter. I'm Jennifer Arthurton, and each episode we dive into reinvention, resilience, and unapologetic pursuit of your best chapter yet. Because midlife is not the beginning of the end, it's simply a new beginning. Let's dive in. Today we're going to be talking about finding yourself later in life and what it means to actually live as your most authentic self. So if you've been around this podcast for any length of time, you have undoubtedly heard me say that this is the chapter of authenticity. This is the chapter where we shed anything that is no longer serving us, anything that is no longer aligned with who we are at the core of our being. And this is where we come into fully understanding who we are underneath all of the roles and obligations and duties that life has forced us into. So today I'm excited to dive into this topic with my guest, Anne-Marie Zenzel, who, among many things, is a coach who supports women going through transitions. And we're going to dig into the transition. She has her own really amazing story of finding herself later in life, like finding the true version of herself later in life. And we're going to dig into that story. Anne-Marie, welcome. Welcome. I'm so happy to have you on the podcast.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'm thrilled to be here.
Now, before we jump into your story, there is a quote that I stole from somewhere as I was researching you, where you said, living an authentic life takes courage, vulnerability as we define what it means to be authentically ourselves. Can you say a little bit about that? What does that mean to you?
To me, it means that when we want to make significant changes in our lives, we are immediately confronted by fear because we're in our comfort zones. We have our comfort zones, and whether they're dysfunctional or not, or healthy or unhealthy or not, we're just used to them and we're very, very comfortable in them. And so when we are immediately stepping outside of our comfort zone, the first thing that confronts us is fear, because fear is meaning that our brains is trying to keep trying to keep us safe. And so we procrastinate. We think, oh, this could go wrong. We could think of a million different ways things could go wrong. Right. We worry about what other people are going to think. We worry about how our spouse is going to react. We worry about how our children react. And so we say to ourselves, oh, I got to go back into my comfort zone. But the thing is that you have to push through the fear, because on the other side of fear is learning and growth. And you don't push through the fear by, some people do, just like a video game, punching the things out of their way. But usually it's like one little step at a time, just taking one step of a thing at a time, seeing how you feel after that. And then taking the next step in the journey along the way. So it takes a lot of courage, and there is fear involved, but courage, the definition of courage is being afraid and doing it anyway. And that's how I live my life now.
There is so much life on the other side of fear, right? Absolutely, like I know this for myself, like in my own reinvention journey, it's just like you said, you're in your comfort zone, and your brain will do everything within its power to keep you in that comfort zone, even when your comfort zone is not what you actually want. This is the thing, right? Like we naturally assume that the unknown is going to be worse than the known. Even if the known is not even serving us anymore.
Right. And a lot of times when we are in the fear zone, we don't have clarity. And so many of us, when we are making significant changes to our life, we want to know we want to know what we're moving towards, and we want to make sure that it's going to be 100% perfect when we get there. Right. And you can't. Clarity is just taking those small little steps, and clarity will come if you are brave enough to step out of that comfort zone.
Yeah, that is so true. And the other thing that I was thinking as you were talking is like trusting yourself to be able to deal with whatever comes with that step. So as you take that step forward, it's like, okay, no matter what happens here, I trust myself to be able to navigate through it. But I know I have to keep taking these steps, right?
Well, and it's hard to trust ourselves because we have
It
been
is.
acculturated, conditioned since childhood not to listen to our own voices as women. So it
Isn't that
takes a
true?
long time to be able to hear her again, and hear
Yeah.
that voice that's saying, no, this isn't a good thing for you. You need to go another way, because we have been trained not to listen to our voices. We've been trained to take care of
Yeah.
everybody else but ourselves. And so it
Amen.
takes a while to start to learn how to care for yourself again.
Yeah. Amen. That is so true. So tell us a little bit about your life, kind of who you were, what the transition was, and who you are now.
So I was married for 27 years to my now ex-husband. We have 4 kids together. And I had a pretty traditional life. And I had checked all the boxes, Jennifer. I married a man that, made a lot of money. I had my own career. I'm an ordained minister in the United Church of Christ. I had 4 beautiful children. We were a well-respected family in my very small town. I had pastored 2 churches in that small town. And there was something missing. And I just couldn't figure it out what it was. And like a lot of women, when they have a missing piece, no matter what it is, they keep trying to find it. So, I find that I attract women in my coaching business that are educated. They keep going and getting another degree and stuff like that. And so I had been working in hospice for 7 years. I'd been a hospice chaplain. And, I started to learn a lot of things from my patients. And, what I realized is that people didn't regret the things they've done. If they'd done something that didn't work out too well, they've always made meaning. And what they regret the things they didn't do, like end a marriage, anything. So I was somebody who always struggled with my sexuality. I married a man. But when I was younger, I noticed my attraction towards women, but I didn't do anything about it. I was raised very conservatively, liberal socially, but conservatively religious. My mother was very Catholic, and I went to Catholic school my whole life. And my sisters were considerably older than me, and they got married like at 21, 22 and had babies and stuff like that. And I just didn't do anything about my sexuality when I was younger because I was supposed to get married and have babies. And so I did that.
Check the box.
I checked the box. I noticed attraction to women. I even thought, like, when I was in my early 20s, maybe I was gay. But then I was like, no, I can't do anything about this. I'm not, because my brain had been trained to believe that I was straight, and the cognitive dissonance of showing other things that I was not straight, I just chose to ignore. I just ignored it. And I didn't have a relationship. I didn't explore it. I just didn't do anything about it. So like most women raising children, I did nothing. I mean, I didn't even think about my sexuality in my 30s. I just had I didn't think about it. I was so busy raising kids. And then I had my 4th child. He was 7 years after his siblings. And I went into really bad postpartum depression with him because I had this really great career. My husband and I at the time were not able to think outside of the box. I mean, I was in Girl Scouts and I was going up the ranks like really, really fast. And we didn't have the capability to think outside the box. So when I got pregnant with him and I had 3 kids in elementary school, I said, I'm just staying home. And I quit my job and stayed home and raised him for a couple of years. But I was so happy working, and it was really such a hard thing. So that's why I went into depression. And so anyway, it was at that time, I realized I needed something else to do. And that's when I began my path to ministry. And then also, too, I read this article in Oprah Winfrey magazine that talked about the fluidity of women's sexuality. It was in 2006. My little guy was 3. My oldest was 16. And all of a sudden, I had a language, because all of a sudden women were talking about having been with men and deciding that that wasn't right for them anymore. And so they decided to they ended up being with a woman. And at that time, my daughter, who was 16, I said to her, if something ever happens to Dad and I, don't be surprised if I end up with a woman. And she has absolutely no memory of that conversation at all. But to me, it was a very significant conversation. I raised my children to be good little progressives. So, they were like, okay, whatever, Mom. So then about 10 years I spent trying to come out of the closet. Some very significant things happened. And then in 2016, shortly after I was finally ordained in the United Church of Christ, I came out. And
how old were you at that point?
52. Because my hospice patients had taught me that. And I knew that if I did not go explore this piece of myself, I would regret it for the rest of my life. And in the beginning, it was really more about, just meeting someone and seeing what everything was like. But as that year went on, it was about a year, I realized that it was much deeper than that. And so my ex and I at the time discussed a lot of different ways we could do this, including opening our marriage, but that wasn't something I wanted. We very typical when people are coming out, we discussed a threesome and I was like, I'm not interested in that. And also too, if I'm going to be with a woman, I don't want you there. So that was just like, no. And then also too, we talked about polyamory, but also Jim and I, we got to cut that out. My ex-husband and I, we just knew we weren't built that way. And we're a very monogamous couple. And we just knew none of that stuff was going to work for us. And so we made the very painful decision to get divorced about 6 months later.
So a couple of things I want to go back to that you said. So you're living this life that on the outside is like the perfect life. You've not the house, the kids, the marriage, the thing, and like you said, you're well respected. People are looking up to you in your community. How did that? There's something missing show up for you? Like, was it a voice? Was it a feeling? Like, what was that was kind of like, okay,
it was internal restlessness. I was very restless. I was just, there was, and I love what you're doing, because this, for me, it was my sexuality. For other people, it's other things, And so for me, it was like, if I was always really, really restless in my life, and I just couldn't figure out why, because I had done everything they told me to do that would make me happy. I had done it all, and I had done it well. And so I just couldn't figure it out. And in my book, my book is called Authentic Peace, but it's really a play on the word peace, P-I-E-C, because I really had a missing piece and I couldn't figure it out. And then when I finally let in the possibility that I could be gay, everything started to fall into place, because I find when you start going towards your truth, the universe just goes click, 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 and things happen very, very quickly.
Yeah. And I love that you brought that up, because I hear this story so often, and it was so true for me as well. It's like, you have this life and you're like, I should just be grateful for what I have. Right. And there's this, like, for me, it was like this little voice, like in my career, especially, where I would be, at work and I'd be in a boardroom and I'd be going, is this it? Is this really what I work so hard for? Is this what I want? Right. And then I would shove that question down, because I'm like, okay, first of all, I've invested a lot to get to where I am, like my whole life, basically. I checked all the boxes. I did everything perfectly, exactly like I should. And how could I be questioning this now? Right. Was the thing that kept coming up. But to the point that you just made, it's like, as soon as you can admit to yourself, like for me, it took like a health crisis. Well, for me, it took finding myself divorced, unemployed, an empty nester, and having a health crisis to be like, okay, I really have to start paying attention to this little voice inside me, right? Like I have to start honoring it. And as soon as you do, there is a sense of, even though you might not be clear on things, even though there's still so many unknowns, there's a sense of peace that you feel that you can't deny. Like you literally can't deny it. Right.
And when people ask me the difference between my life today and my life before, I have a peacefulness that I never had before. And I still, even to this day, I mean, was 8 years ago, all of this happened. But even to this day, it sort of blows my mind that I am living an incredibly different life than I lived years ago. And it blows my mind that I'm happy because because that norm was so ingrained in the heteronormative, we call it heteronormative, or that heteronormative norm was so ingrained in me that to this day, I still have surprise that, I'm happy. My life is a little bit more quieter but that's also because my kids are grown too, it's a little bit more quieter now. I'm still in love with my wife. We've been together 7 years. With my ex-husband, even from the beginning, I was like, should I be married to you? I don't know if I should be married to you. We had a wonderful friendship based on the love of our children. But even when we first got married, within a year, I was like, oh, I don't know if I did the right thing and stuff like that. And I don't have any of those feelings right now. None. So it's really nice to live with not questioning everything you've done. It's exhausting to continually question your life. So since I don't have to do that anymore, I have a lot more freedom to have to do other things.
And I think this you just made another really important point about it being exhausting to go against who you really are. And so many of us do that. Like for me, that exhaustion showed up in the form of a health crisis, right? Where I literally couldn't get out of bed. And if we don't, what is it they say? And I think it was Oprah who said this: first you get the tap on the shoulder, then you get the nudge, then you get the shove. Yeah. And then you get the brick in the head. Like for some of us, that's what it takes. But if we can tune in earlier and learn to trust ourselves over the conditioning, like that all-powerful conditioning, we could avoid ourselves so much heartache, right? Like we could be living, these amazing lives right from the get-go. Right.
And also too, I want to mention that in our later in life community, a lot of people have something called a catalytic moment or catalyst. And what you're describing with your health crisis was your catalyst. It was your catalyst to change things. So a lot of times when women come out later in life, they have some sort of catalyst moment. For me, it was my ordination. For other people, it's illness, it's divorce, a child dies. A parent dies. A lot of times people come out after a parent dies.
Oh, interesting.
Because mom and dad kept them in the closet. It is so unbelievable that, or the other person, and then there can be a person that's a catalyst. You fall in love with somebody. So there's always an event that precedes all this. And then always just like you, across the board, somebody has an event that happens and makes them start to question everything they thought they knew.
Well, and this is the thing, right? Like, the questioning comes up. So first of all, I believe that we were never, ever meant to be the same person from the beginning to the end of our lives. Like who we are in the various chapters of our lives serves us for that chapter.
Absolutely.
We get into trouble because we try and hang on to that version of us long past the expiry date. Like I know this to be true for me. But, trusting ourselves in this evolution, right? And knowing that like, oh, instead of being like, oh, who is the next version of me? Like, what is this chapter? We do the opposite. Oh my God, no, hold on to everything, which is where we get into trouble, right?
Absolutely.
And if we could just embrace that, like, oh, I'm evolving, I'm changing, I'm growing. How do I honor those pieces of me? The transition could be a lot smoother and a lot less scary, right?
Well, it can be a lot less scary, but the thing is that we have been so conditioned to believe.
Yeah.
So I'm going to use marriage as an example.
Yeah.
So you've been to weddings, I'm sure, and they do that dance where all the couples get up, all the married couples get up on the floor and they say, oh, if you've been married 5 years, sit down, and they go through the years. And then finally there's one last couple dancing together because they've been married 55 years and everybody gives them a big hand, right? They hate each other, but they're still together.
Right.
Sometimes they love each other. My sister has a very loving marriage with her husband. She's been with him for like almost 60 years. But the thing is that we have to begin to deconstruct what we think about marriage because, and the effects of divorce on children, because I believe that holds women in their, because they don't, if people get divorced, they think they've failed. I never thought of the end of my marriage as a failure. I always thought of it was that I needed to move on. I just did. But so many people, like a lot of my work, people come to me as a coming out coach, but most of my work is divorce support because
interesting,
because people need a lot of support through divorce because, 80% of all women that come out later in life come from some conservative religious tradition. So I have to deconstruct, first of all, what it means to be a woman because they've been conditioned to believe what it means to be a woman by their religious tradition. And then I have to deconstruct what it means, help them deconstruct what it means to get divorced. And how is it going to affect your family? Like the first words everyone always says, oh, this is going to destroy my family. No, it's not. It's going to change your family, but it's not going to destroy it. And so a lot of my work is about that, is about letting like rethinking everything you've been taught and saying, wait a minute, should you stay married your entire life if you're miserable with someone, or you just don't match up? Or like my ex and I, we were really good friends based around our children, but we didn't have a romantic life at all. We just didn't. And we hadn't for a really long time. And it wasn't because I didn't want to or anything like that. We just didn't. So if you're in a sexless marriage, do you need to stay there? I mean, because we're all allowed to have joy and in our lives, and it's okay to move towards your joy.
Yeah. And this really is, and I see this with my clients as well, too, in various different ways. This really is the chapter of deprogramming, of unlearning, of unlearning everything about who we thought we were, what's acceptable, what we're capable of, like unlearning everything and like almost starting from a clean slate. Like for me, I was given that opportunity because everything in my life that kept me busy. So, marriage, kid, job, even I was like a big gym goer, right? Like all of that was taken from me. And I was forced to sit with myself, right? To sit with like, who am I? And this was my biggest question was if I'm not wife, mother, corporate executive, all of that, who am I? And like, when I asked myself that question and I didn't know the answer, it was kind of like, oh, wow. Like I have no idea who that woman is. And so I had to start from the beginning to learn about her, like to build a relationship with her, to figure out like where she wanted to go. And I imagine that must be quite similar for a lot of the women that you work with, because again, the cultural programming is so heavy.
Well, yeah. And then also too, the worry about like, am I going to lose my family? Am I going to lose the people I love? Because, we have, especially people are coming out of conservative religious traditions, which are sometimes very horrible to the LGBTQ community. And so a lot of times it is the unpacking. It is the undoing that most of the women go through. And then to be able to embrace the fact that you're not heteronormative anymore, that you're queer. We call it, queer is a reclaimed word in the LGBTQ community.
Yeah.
So you're queer. And, like with my women that I work with, I start with, maybe I am not straight. And that's all we start with, because people, and also too, this reclaiming, like, you listed all the labels of what you were, before all this happened.
Yeah.
And, a lot of times we really want to reject labels after that. And then,
Well, exactly.
Yeah, you want to reject labels and not have any labels. I am just who I am. And then you enter the queer community that's filled with labels. And you're like, what the heck? And so a lot of times, like, I was horrified by all the labels at first in the LGBT community. But, it's like people just sort of, and also too, when people are coming out later in life, they're entering a new culture too. I mean, even though we like it, because there is a queer culture and there is an LGBTQ culture. And if you've never been involved of it, it's like entering a foreign land. It really, really is for some people. Like, I was always a great ally. Most women coming out later in life are typically great allies before they come out. They often have queer kids and stuff like that. But this is my definition of internalized homophobia is, I don't care who's gay. I'll support your rights. I'll fight for your right for whatever. But the only person who can't be gay is me. You can be it. My kid can be it. And that was me.
Oh.
I was an incredible ally to the community. I have a non-binary child. But the only person that couldn't be gay was me.
Wow. Isn't that interesting? Right. So you were an ally for everybody else, but you were not an ally for yourself.
Right. And now I just thought of that. My God, what a way not to take care of myself. Right. Because I was taking care of everybody else. I was taking care of strangers, but I couldn't take care of myself. But I also had been trained to put everybody, I was raised Catholic. And if anybody in your audience is Catholic or Jewish, they understand, like, you are raised to put yourself last. And often, and so I just didn't even think that that was possible for me. And it was really the reading of that article and then all the deconstruction that went on for 10 years before I finally had the courage to leave my marriage, because, we'd been together a long time and we weren't enemies, so yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love what you just said. So first of all, about the programming. I mean, we are taught, like, a good woman is selfless, right? Like, she puts herself last on the list, which, like, okay, let's blow that BS out of the water right now. But what you just said about becoming an ally for yourself and, like, really loving on yourself, that means, like, honoring who you are, like, not the version of you that people expect or, society has deemed you are. It's about, like, loving you for who you are, like, good, bad, ugly, indifferent, whatever. Right. And that coming into authenticity of, coming to the truth of who you really are is an incredible act of self-love. Yes. And I had never actually made that connection until you just said what you said.
Well, yeah. And like, I'm a big fan of Kristen Neff, and she talks about that radical self-compassion. And so over the last 8 years, I've learned to be very kind to myself. I've learned to ask myself when I hear myself beating myself up or I have feelings of shame and guilt, to be able to ask myself, why am I feeling this? Like, I shouldn't be feeling this. Why am I feeling this? And also, too, I really love what you're doing, Jennifer, because this shared common humanity of other women like us, all post 50, all talking about old, chicks, we know shit. I mean, like, I just think that's amazing, because we are sharing this experience of, hey guys, we know stuff. You're allowed to have the best life you want, and you can go for it, because Jennifer and I have done it, and that millions of other women have done it as well. And then I also believe in mindfulness. So I'm a big practitioner of mindfulness, because that allows me to be able to step back from my feelings and emotions, like when I feel guilt and shame, and be able to say, okay, what's going on with you right now, Anne-Marie? Why are you feeling shame? Why are you feeling guilt? Yeah. So.
Yeah. I mean, most of the work that I do, so often women who come into my community are like, I know there's something more for my life, but I have no idea what it is and how to figure that out. Like, I just know there's something missing. And my job mainly is connecting them back to themselves, because inside you do know, like, the answers to every question you have live inside you,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Your job now is to get quiet enough to be able to hear your own voice, right? To be able to shut down all of those voices that want to tell us how to show up, who to be, what to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then go inwards, because like, and I can't tell you, like pretty much all of my clients, you know, I get talking to them and they're like, oh yeah, this is the thing. Oh yeah, I've always wanted to. And you literally see their faces change. You feel their energy shift.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And just like, so what you just said about mindfulness and just like spending time with yourself, like listening to what's happening inside of you and getting curious, what you just said about getting curious about, well, why do I feel this way? Why does this person drain my energy? You know, why am I diving into this box of cookies when I know I really don't want to do that? Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so being able to hear ourselves is probably, at least for me, I will state this for myself, and I think this is true for a lot of people. The gift of being able to hear and trust myself has been the greatest gift I have ever received. Like, hands down.
Amen. Yeah. And it's not, it doesn't happen overnight.
It does not happen overnight.
And it doesn't happen without having to feel a lot of things.
Right.
And, you know, and that's when people get frightened, because having challenging and difficult feelings is hard. And so that's why I think it's always really important, you know, no matter what type of search for authenticity you are going for, is to find people that can guide you and tell you, this is normal. This is normal. This is normal. And I feel like, you know, the work that we're doing and other women like us, it's really radical, because I'm not going to go quietly into the night. That's not going to happen. I was quiet for too long, and I did what I was supposed to, you know, what I was supposed to do. And I'm in air quotes now, folks. So I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. And I did that for far too long. I'm not doing that anymore. I am not hiding my light under a bushel. I am going to live my life. And I'm very, like, there's a comfort to the way I am now versus the way I was before. And, you know, believe me, some of my stuff still shows up. Oh, should I have said that to person? It's not like, this is the thing. I loved what you said, is that you learn to accept yourself, because like, I am a perfectly imperfect human being. And so like, I say things sometimes to, you know, I'm quick to judge. I can say things without thinking, you know, but I'm doing the best I can, and I don't beat myself up anymore when I have perceived failure around something. You know, I speak kindly to myself and say, okay, Anne-Marie, what's going on? What's this about? Is it my inner child saying from something from 50 years ago that's, you know, crying out for something because she's scared, you know, and do I need to talk to her right now? You know, it's not about what's going on. It's about my deepest self being frightened about something.
Yeah. And I think the beautiful part is that, you know, we are constantly learning ourselves, right? Like we are constantly growing, and to beat ourselves up for not knowing or being in a certain state or like whatever it is, right? Like we're simply learning. It's like, oh, okay. And curiosity can really help us through that, to your point, right? Like, why do I feel this way? Right? Not like, what's wrong with me? You know, but because God, like all the way at the beginning of my journey, like, you know, when my life literally fell apart in front of my eyes, like in a period of like a year, I turned that in on myself. I'm like, well, what's wrong with me? Everybody else's life is going along fine. There has to be something wrong with me. And so many of us do that because it's like, well, we don't fit this mold that they told us we were supposed to, whether it's career, sexuality, relationship, like whatever it is. I don't fit this mold, therefore I must be broken, as opposed to, well, maybe the mold was just never for me in the first place.
Right. I love that. I really love that. Because maybe the mold wasn't, and also, you know, there are people that are comfortable with the mold. And if you are, and it's not 100%. Maybe, and I don't want to say that it's a mold for you. It's just who you are as a person. And you love this, you know, and that's great. But, you know, when we try to describe women and men, for that matter, as this this cookie cutter thing of who they're supposed to be, that's ridiculous. We're all so different, and we should allow people to be who they are. And, you worry about you.
Right.
And we let other people be. And that includes our children, our ex-husbands, everybody. We need to just let people be who they are. And, and if you believe in something greater than yourself, if you believe in a divinity or something like that, just give it over to them and say, they're going to handle it, but I'm just going to be a nice person to everybody and let people live their lives,
Right. But also when you come into acceptance of self, it allows you to be accepting of other people as well, too.
Oh, my goodness. Yes. Yeah. I find that I am I was a hospice chaplain for years, but I am so much more compassionate than I've ever been in my life. I am very, very compassionate. I can see things that other people can't see. And, I'm sort of, but I'm also, as I said before, there's also a calmness to myself now that, a live and let live kind of attitude that I'm really comfortable with. And, when I see people I love getting uptight about everything, and sometimes, to be supportive, but also knowing that, this is too shall pass, this is going to pass, and this will be a memory pretty soon. And so do you have to give all your energy and beat yourself up 1,000% because of something that's not going the way you want it to? And, I'm learning to let go, and I'm learning to realize that I really don't have any control, and it's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, as an ACOA, an adult child of an alcoholic, it's all about control and codependency for us. And it's so nice not to be in charge of everybody anymore.
Ain't that the truth?
Amen, well, I mean,
right? control is such an illusion, because while we think we have control, we don't. And so we could reclaim a lot of energy when we recognize that fact. And like you said, control what you can, which is you.
Jennifer, I have a question for you, because I get this question a lot, and I see my clients living with regret from living, staying in a marriage too long, regret for not coming out in their 20s when they had a girlfriend, but then decided to get married to a guy, regret, how do you counsel the people you work with around regret? And how do you, I'm just curious. I'm like, oh, good. She's the perfect person to ask, because I've been contemplating that lately.
First of all, I don't really believe in regret, to be honest, because I believe in the divine timing of everything. Right. And so it happens when it's supposed to happen. Right. Like where you are right now is exactly where you were supposed to be. Where you were in your 20s was exactly where you were supposed to be. Right. And if you can look at it that way, and to see how that thing served you or didn't, served you at that time, right? Like maybe being ostracized by your family at that point wasn't the right time for you, or whatever it was, right? Like if you can see how that thing served you at that time, it allows you to be able to put it in its place, to put it in the puzzle. Like I look back on my own life with absolutely no regrets, because first of all, I have such compassion for the person that I was then, who dealt with that situation, or who didn't do this thing, or who whatever. Yeah. Like I have such compassion for her, because she was just doing the best that she knew how to do at that particular moment. And that's exactly how it should have been. Right. And that, you know what, we learn, we grow, and we move forward. So a decision, and this is the other part, no decision is ever permanent. Right. So we can change our mind about anything at any point. So if you didn't do it when you were 20, you know what? You can do it now. Like now is the next best time.
Right. Absolutely. I love that. Thank you.
No, it's an interesting question, because I think about it a lot, and I do hear, sometimes I question myself. I'm like, well, why didn't I, why did I stay in my career so long? Why did I stay in my marriage so long? And I was like, because that's was serving that version of me back then, right? She was doing the best she could with the tools she had. I know so much more now. I'm, so much more of an evolved person that I can make different decisions now with a much greater degree of confidence in them. So This
Well, I
is what
love
life
that. Thank
is,
you.
right?
Yeah,
Just
absolutely.
learning and growing and making mistakes.
Well, and as a recovering overachiever, um, you know, I'm like, oh, I'm never going to be done.
Me too.
I want to reach enlightenment and be Buddha, and I'm like, that's not going to happen, and it's like, I'm never going to be done because I'm always going to be learning. And,
Well,
and, and so there's a piece of me that, that still wants to check all the boxes, right? And that perfectionist that wants to check all the boxes. But I'm learning to accept that I'm never going to be done, and I'm always going to be learning, and I'm always going to be growing. And we are meant to do that. Before before we started the show today, you and I were both talking about how the women that are listening to this show right now, is they're at the place where they're supposed to be doing this. We are still an adult developmental stage. You're not having a midlife crisis. You are living your life, and you're supposed to be questioning things. So I just turned 60, and right now I am at the point in my life where I'm starting to think about, okay, what do I want my work legacy to be? I have about 10 more years left of working probably. And what do I want to leave? And I feel like I want to lift up as many people as I possibly can and I've been doing this a while now, over the next 10 years, and and leave my legacy that way. That is, as many people as possible can, in my niche, can be comfortable who they are with their sexual or gender orientation, and live their life to the fullest. Because I really believe that when we are all authentic, no matter what that means for you, the world is a better place. So if we stop trying to sit in the paradigm that we've been told that we're supposed to sit in, and we embrace our authenticity, whether it's, you're being gay, or you always wanted to be a writer, you always wanted to be a painter, you want to hike the Appalachian Trail, you want to bike around the United States, any of those things that you've always wanted to do, that when you live authentically, you teach others it's okay, and you are happier. So happy people make a happy world, right?
That is so
I want
true.
a happy world. Don't you? I want a happy
100%.
world. We've had a very sad world, especially in the United States, the last couple of years. And so I would like a happy world.
Yeah. I love what you just said. The whole thing about legacy, people at the podcast have heard me say this before. My mom died when she was 56. Right. And I'm hyper aware of the fact that I get to live these years that she didn't, right? Like this is such a gift. And the question is what do I want these years to mean? Right. Like, what do I want my life to stand for? Just like you said. And the same for me. It's like, I want all women to be able to live their best, most authentic life, doing whatever it is, to your point, whatever it is that makes you truly, truly happy at the core of your being, to go against this narrative that as soon as you reach 50, it's the, downhill slide into old age oblivion, and you just kind of sit around waiting for the end, which, like, from 50 to 80 or 90, that's like 30 or 40 years. It's a whole lifetime. It's a whole freaking lifetime.
Yes.
Right? That we get to choose what we do with that gift of life.
Absolutely. And, my wife and I we're both 60, and we're really aware of the fact that, we've had elders go before us, and we're like, we're going to do the things we want to do now. And then, so that while we're still physically able to do the things, because I see so many people waiting for retirement and stuff like that. And then something happens and they can't do any of those things. So, we are very conscious about living into joy. Yeah. And we're very, because we're both, we're both old ladies. So we're really conscious of, like, okay, how do I want to live into joy? How do I want to treat my partners so we are happy together? And and we have really evolved over the last couple of years around those very questions, because we just are tired, and we don't want to fight anymore, and we don't want to have tension in our house. And so we're really, really both conscious of trying to be peaceful partners, and learning skills around arguing. All those things are really, really important when you get older, because I'm at 60. I want peace. That's all I want. I want peace and happiness. And I've worked hard, and I've been able to, mostly, knock on wood, achieve that,
Yeah. Yeah, that is so, so beautiful. Because that's really what it is to be able to, you see this with hospice, I think there was a study done out of Cornell that talked about people, in the later years of their lives, like, what did they regret? And they always regretted not becoming the best version of themselves. Like, that was the number one regret, like not fully exploring who they were. And I think about that one all the time, because I'm like, I'm sure that even now there are still dimensions of me that are yet to be explored, and I'm excited to explore them. And, the question I ask myself often, like, I've reformed my overachiever perfectionist person into this saying that I say all the time: how good can it get? Right? Like, how good can this life be? Let's go find out. Right?
And isn't that exciting? Like,
it is.
Isn't that exciting, instead of living into a expectation of somebody, that was set for you when you were years ago? And you may have set it for yourself, but Jennifer, has said we're constantly evolving. We're all constantly evolving. We're not made to be static people. But wouldn't it be fun to be able to say, like, looking into your future at 50, 55, 60, 65, 70 plus, and being able to say, how much fun can I have? What can I do? Yeah. What can I explore? What can I learn? Because it's not over when you're 50. It's actually the best time of your life, because, I'm going to swear, because a lot of times we have no more fucks to give.
Amen to that.
Just don't. And so I'm going to be happy. And if that makes you uncomfortable, then those are feelings that you're required to deal with, not me. I am not in charge of your feelings. You are in charge of your feelings.
Yeah. Oh, so amazing. So true. So one last question before we wrap up. What's one piece of advice that you would give to a woman right now who's standing on the precipice of a transition? What's the one thing that you would say to her?
I think I would say to her, you're going to be afraid, because all of us are afraid when we are making a major life transition. Find support. Find people who are going through this experience, because you are not the only one. I mean, you are not. And treat yourself kindly. Treat yourself kindly. And if you don't know how to do that, just Google self-kindness and learn. And it's not about, self-kindness is not about like bubble baths. No. Self-kindness is about listening to the voices inside you and being very aware of how they're talking to you. And make sure that voice is always, always very kind. And that's what I would tell people to do.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. Thank you for that beautiful advice. And thank you for sharing your journey with us. There are, like, again, whether, the transition is in your sexuality, your career, whatever it is, I think your story has demonstrated so many amazing lessons that we can all take. And so thank you for sharing that with us, giving us that gift. I appreciate you and the work that you do in the world.
Well, thank you, Jennifer. And thank you for the show. This is a lot of fun. And thank you for the work you do as well. And the invitation to come and talk about it.
Yeah, so good. I loved our conversation. I really did. So to those of you listening, if you like what you heard today, please feel free to rate and review this show, or even better yet, you would do us an incredible honor by sharing this episode with a friend or a relative or somebody you think could get something out of it. So until next time. Thanks for listening to the Old Chicks No Shit podcast. If you like what you heard, the greatest compliment you could give us would be to comment below and subscribe. Or better yet, you could share this episode with a friend, a relative, or somebody you think could get something out of it. And remember, midlife is not the beginning of the end. It's simply the beginning of your kick-ass next chapter.